The overconfident invasion. The pride of the Zeltharian Empire, Admiral Vextar stood in the command center of the massive warship Stellar Dominator, his 6 arms crossed behind his muscular frame as he gazed at the small blue planet floating peacefully in the void. The Zeltharian Empire had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, and Earth was about to become number 48. His purple-scaled skin gleamed under the artificial lights of the bridge, and his 3 eyes focused intently on what appeared to be the easiest conquest of his distinguished career. The Zeltharians were proud beings, standing nearly 8 feet, tall with natural armor plating and strength that could crush most metals. Their empire stretched across 12 star systems, and their military might was legendary throughout this sector of the galaxy. Today's mission was supposed to be routine: demonstrate superior firepower, demand surrender, establish colonial administration, and move on to the next target. Status report, Commander Zalneth, Vextar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of countless victories. Commander Zalneth, a younger Zeltharian with bright orange markings indicating his junior status, consulted his holographic displays. Admiral, all fleet elements are in position. 200 heavy cruisers, 50 assault carriers, and our flagship form a perfect blockade around the planet. Their primitive satellites show no sign of advanced weaponry or defense systems. Vextar nodded approvingly. The intelligence reports had been clear. Earth was inhabited by a species called humans who had barely mastered chemical propulsion. They fought among themselves with projectile weapons, burned fossil fuels for energy, and had only recently begun exploring their own solar system. It would be like conquering children. An unusual first contact. The communication officer, Lieutenant Cresta, suddenly straightened at her station. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the planet's surface. Multiple sources, all imperfect. Galactic Standard. Vextar's middle eye widened slightly. Galactic Standard was the diplomatic language used by advanced civilizations, developed over thousands of years by the most sophisticated species in known space. How could these primitives possibly know it? Put it through, he ordered, assuming. It must be some kind of translation error. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human female with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. She wore simple clothing and sat behind what appeared to be a basic wooden desk. Her expression was neither fearful nor hostile, but rather patient. Greetings, Admiral Vextar of the Zeltharian Empire, the human said in flawless Galactic. Standard, her pronunciation better than most trained diplomats. My name is Director Sarah Chen, and I represent Earth's Coordination Council. We've been expecting you. A stunned silence fell across the bridge. Commander Zalneth's orange markings flickered with confusion. Admiral, how does she know your name? That information was classified at the highest levels. Vextar recovered quickly, though unease crept into his voice. Director Chen, you will surrender immediately. Your world is surrounded by forces beyond your comprehension. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization. Sarah Chen smiled gently, as if speaking to an overeager child. Admiral, would you like some tea? I've prepared a blend that should be compatible with Zeltharian physiology. We can discuss this situation like civilized beings. The offer was so unexpected, so completely contrary to every previous first contact scenario, that Vextar found himself momentarily speechless. Every species they had encountered had responded, with either terror, rage, or desperate attempts at negotiation. This human was offering refreshments, disturbing discoveries. Admiral, called Science Officer Threnkol from his station, his voice tight with concern. I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. The readings don't match any known technology in our databases. Vextar turned toward the science station, his confidence beginning to waver. Explain. Threnkol manipulated his controls, bringing up a 3-dimensional scan of Earth. Sir, there are structures beneath the ocean floors and deep underground that appear to be generating enormous amounts of power. The energy output is, well, it's comparable to our own main reactors, but the signatures are completely unfamiliar. On the main screen, Director Chen continued to sit patiently, as if waiting for them to finish their conversation. Are you quite done with your scans? She asked politely. I understand the need for thorough reconnaissance, but we really should discuss the situation properly. Vexitar felt his scales tighten with irritation. Human, you are in no position to make demands. Your world has no defenses, no space fleet, no weapons capable of threatening our forces. Oh, we have defenses, Sarah replied mildly. We simply prefer not to use them unless absolutely necessary. Violence is such an inefficient solution to most problems, don't you think? Commander Zalneth leaned closer to Vexitar and whispered, Admiral, something is very wrong here. Our intelligence indicated these humans were completely unaware of galactic civilization. Yet she speaks our language, knows your name, and seems entirely unconcerned about our invasion fleet. The mysterious past Lieutenant Cresta interrupted their quiet conference. Admiral, I'm receiving data transmissions from across the galaxy. It appears Earth is part of an extensive communication network we were completely unaware of. That's impossible, Vexitar snapped. Our deep space monitoring stations would have detected any interstellar communications from this system. Sir, Cressida continued nervously, the transmissions aren't going through normal space, they're using some kind of quantum entanglement protocol that operates outside conventional physics. The network appears to connect thousands of worlds, including many within our own territory. Vexitar's three eyes widened in alarm. If humans had established communication networks throughout Zeltharian space without detection, what else might they be capable of? On the screen, Director Chen seemed to sense his growing unease. Admiral, I think there may have been some misunderstandings in your intelligence reports. Earth isn't quite the primitive world your sources suggested. Then explain, Vexitar demanded, his patience wearing thin. Explain how a species that hasn't even colonized their own moon can speak galactic standard and operate interstellar communication networks. Sarah's expression grew thoughtful. Well, Admiral, that's rather like asking how a master painter can create art with simple brushes and canvas. The tools don't always reflect the artist's true capabilities. She leaned forward slightly, her calm demeanor never wavering. Tell me, have you ever heard of the Andorian Peace Accords? The Rigel Trade Protocols? The Great Alliance that ended the Sector War 3,000 years ago? Each name she mentioned sent a chill through the Zeltharian command crew. These were legendary events from galactic history, foundations of modern interstellar law and diplomacy. Some were so ancient that only the most advanced civilizations maintained records of them. How do you know those names? Vexitar whispered. Because we were there, Sarah replied simply. Humanity has been involved in galactic affairs for quite some time. We simply prefer to work behind the scenes. Growing unease, Science Officer Thren Cole's voice cracked with excitement and fear. Admiral, I've been analyzing the quantum signatures. From those underground installations, the technology appears to be based on principles we don't understand. The power generation methods are completely beyond our current science. Vexitar's military training warred with his growing confusion. Every protocol demanded that he proceed with the invasion, but every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. Director Chen, I don't care what games you're playing. Surrender now or face the consequences. Sarah sighed softly. Admiral, I had hoped we could resolve this peacefully, but I suppose some lessons can only be learned through experience. She touched something off-screen, and her image flickered slightly. Suddenly, every system on the Stellar Dominator went completely silent. The lights dimmed to emergency levels. The constant hum of the massive engines died away. Even the artificial gravity fluctuated, causing several crew members to stumble. In the terrifying silence that followed, the only sound was the rapid breathing of 200 highly trained Zeltharian warriors suddenly facing the unknown. What did you do? Vexitar managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. On the screen, which somehow remained active despite the ship's power failure, Sarah's expression remained kind but firm. I disabled your weapons systems and main engines, Admiral. Don't worry, life support is still functioning normally. We would never endanger your crew. Commander Zalneth frantically worked his controls, but nothing responded. Admiral, it's not just us. I'm receiving emergency signals from the entire fleet. Every ship has been simultaneously disabled. Vexitar stared at the human woman who had just neutralized the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy with what appeared to be a simple gesture. That's impossible. Our ships have independent systems, quantum encryption, multiple redundancies. No single signal could affect our entire fleet. You're absolutely right, Sarah agreed. No single signal could do that. We used several thousand signals, precisely calibrated and perfectly synchronized. It's really quite elegant, actually. The Admiral's world tilted on its axis. Everything he had believed about military superiority, technological advancement, and the natural order of galactic civilization was crumbling around him. These humans had just demonstrated capabilities that exceeded anything in Zeltharian experience. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and dread. Sarah Chen smiled, and for the first time, there was something ancient in her eyes, something that spoke of vast knowledge and patient wisdom accumulated over unimaginable spans of time. "We are humanity, Admiral, and it's time you learned what that really means. The ancient awakening, the hidden truth." The emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the bridge of the Stellar Dominator as Admiral Vextar struggled to comprehend what had happened to his fleet. 200 of the most advanced warships in Zeltharian space neutralized in an instant by a species his intelligence services had dismissed as primitive. On the main screen, Director Sarah Chen waited patiently, her calm expression suggesting she had all the time in the universe. "Admiral," she said gently, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation. Would you like me to restore partial power to your ship so your crew can be more comfortable?" Vextar's pride warred with practical necessity. His warriors were strong, but the environmental systems were crucial for extended operations in space. "Do it," he said through gritted teeth. Sarah nodded to someone off-screen, and immediately the ship's systems hummed back to life. Not completely. The weapons remained offline and the engines stayed dead, but enough to restore normal lighting and atmosphere. The demonstration of precise control was perhaps more unsettling than the initial attack. "Thank you," Vextar said grudgingly. "Now explain what you've done to my fleet." "We've temporarily disrupted the quantum coherence fields that power your primary systems," Sarah replied as if discussing the weather. "It's completely reversible and your ships are in no danger. Think of it as a pause button." "Science officer." Threnkel looked up from his instruments, his orange markings now pale with shock. "Admiral, that's impossible. Quantum coherence fields can only be disrupted by direct physical intervention. There's no way to affect them remotely, especially not across multiple ships simultaneously." Sarah's smile grew slightly wider. "Officer, Threnkel, isn't it? Your doctoral thesis on quantum field dynamics was quite impressive, particularly your work on theoretical multidimensional interference patterns. You were very close to understanding the truth." The young science officer's jaw dropped. His thesis had been classified research known only to the highest levels of Zeltharian military science. "How could you possibly?" "Because we've been watching, learning, and occasionally guiding for far longer than your species realizes," Sarah interrupted gently. "The breakthrough that led to your quantum drive technology, the mathematical proofs that made your weapon systems possible, the diplomatic protocols that allowed your empire to expand peacefully. Humanity had a hand in all of it. Revelations from the Deep Commander Zalneth activated the fleet communication system, his voice tense with barely controlled panic. "Admiral, I'm receiving reports from our archaeological survey teams, the ones we sent to investigate ruins in the Kepler system last year." "What about them?" Vextar demanded, though he was beginning to dread the answer. "Sir, they've found inscriptions, human inscriptions, in ruins that predate our own civilization by 50,000 years." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of restored life support systems. Sarah Chen nodded slowly as if she had been expecting this revelation. "Admiral," she said softly, "what do you know about the Guardians?" Vextar's blood ran cold. Every child in Zeltharian space knew the legends of the Guardians, mysterious beings who had supposedly watched over the galaxy since time immemorial. preventing catastrophic wars and guiding young civilizations away from self-destruction. They were myths, stories told to explain the surprisingly peaceful development of galactic civilization. Fairy tales, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Are they? Sarah asked. Think about it, Admiral. In a galaxy filled with aggressive species and competing empires, why have there been so few extinction-level conflicts? Why do most civilizations develop along similar peaceful lines despite having no contact with each other? Why do crucial, scientific breakthroughs often occur simultaneously across multiple worlds? She paused, letting the implications sink in. The Guardians aren't myths, Admiral. We're sitting right here. Lieutenant Cresta spoke up from her communication station, her voice trembling. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across Earth's surface. Structures are rising from the ocean, structures that weren't there an hour ago. The main tactical display showed Earth's surface transforming before their eyes. Enormous crystalline towers emerged from the deepest ocean trenches, their surfaces pulsing with energy patterns that defied analysis. Similar structures rose from hidden locations on every continent, connected by beams of light that formed a complex geometric pattern around the entire planet. What is that? Vextar whispered. Earth's true face, Sarah replied. What you saw before was a carefully maintained facade. We've found that most species react better to the idea of primitive worlds than to the reality of ancient civilizations. It makes first contact less traumatic. The network of Watchers Science Officer Thren Cole worked frantically at his instruments, his 3 eyes wide with disbelief. Admiral, those energy signatures are off the charts. The power output from those structures exceeds anything we've ever encountered. And the construction? It's happening at the molecular level, matter being assembled atom by atom. How long have you been watching us? Vexter asked, his voice barely audible. Sarah consulted something off-screen. Your species? Since you first developed agriculture 12,000 years ago. We were there when you discovered fire, when you built your first cities, when you reached for the stars. The Zeltharian Empire exists because we helped guide your early development away from self-destructive tendencies. The Admiral sank into his command chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the revelation. The plague of despair that nearly wiped out our homeworld 3 millennia ago. We provided the cure, Sarah confirmed. Through carefully placed discoveries and inspired research, the peace treaty that ended your civil wars, the technological breakthroughs that made space travel possible, even the cultural developments that shaped your current society. All of it guided by humanity. Commander Zalneth struggled to process the information. But why? Why watch over us? What do you gain? Sarah's expression grew serious. Because we learned the hard way what happens when a species develops too quickly without wisdom. Humanity nearly destroyed itself, and half the galaxy with it, millions of years ago. When we rebuilt our civilization, we swore never to let that happen again, not to us and not to any other species with potential. The ancient war, the tactical display shifted to show a star map of incredible complexity, with thousands of worlds marked in different colors. Lines of light connected many of them, forming a network that spanned the entire galaxy. This is the current state of the Guardian network, Sarah explained. Each world represents a civilization we monitor and occasionally guide. Green worlds are peaceful and developing well. Yellow worlds need occasional intervention. Red worlds, she paused sadly. Red worlds rejected our guidance and chose paths of destruction. Vextar noticed there were very few red markers on the map. What happened to them? Most destroyed themselves despite our efforts to help, Sarah replied. A few survived their self-destructive phases and eventually joined the network as junior partners, but some, her voice hardened slightly, some became threats to the entire galaxy. A new section of the map appeared showing a region of space that appeared completely empty. No stars, no planets, just void. The Devourers, Sarah continued. A machine intelligence that consumed entire star systems to fuel its expansion. It took the combined efforts of 12 Guardian-protected civilizations to stop them. The war lasted 3,000 years and left that entire sector uninhabitable, Lieutenant Cresta gasped. The dead zone. We always wondered what caused such massive stellar destruction. Now you know, Sarah said grimly, and it's why we can't allow aggressive empires to expand unchecked. The Zeltharian military philosophy of conquer first, negotiate later is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to galactic-scale disasters. A new perspective Admiral Vextar stood slowly, his worldview completely transformed. The proud warrior, who had entered Earth's system planning a simple conquest, was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood his place in the cosmic order. What happens now? He asked. To my fleet, to my empire? Sarah's smile returned, warm and reassuring. That depends on you, Admiral. The Zeltharian Empire can continue to exist and even expand, but it must do so peacefully. No more forced conquests. No more threats against peaceful worlds. Join the network of civilizations working together to protect the galaxy. And if we refuse? Sarah's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes suggested vast power held in careful restraint. Then your ships will remain exactly where they are until your government sends more reasonable negotiators. We have infinite patience, Admiral. We've been doing this for a very long time. Vextar looked around his bridge at his crew. Warriors, who had been humbled by the discovery that they were children playing at war, while ancient guardians watched from the shadows. The choice was clear. I need to contact the Zeltharian High Command, he said finally. Of course, Sarah nodded. Take all the time you need. But Admiral? She paused as his image began to flicker. Next time you encounter a world that seems primitive, remember today? Appearances can be very deceiving. As the communication ended, Admiral Vextar stared out at the transformed Earth, its crystalline towers and energy beams painting the planet in brilliant light. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he realized that this wasn't the end of the Zeltharian Empire. It was the beginning of something far greater. The invasion had failed completely, but perhaps that was exactly what needed to happen. The ancient guardians of humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.